would love for my wife to be at home all day and she just does what I say.
Are you married?
I love that.
Oh.
If I had the preference, I would prefer to have full control over my wife. Or
Full
maybe-
control over
Like,
my wife?
let him explain.
What is it? Slavery?
Tell us true. Tell us true, King.
It's cool. If I had the preference, I would like to have full control. Just me as a person, I like having full control of all of my situations.
100% facts.
So if it was my preference, I would prefer to control her entirely.
Now, fellas, I really want to have this conversation with you all because we're always having this conversation around you should pick better men type thing, as if to say it's women's fault that they end up getting the short end of the stick. And don't get me wrong, I am a woman and I am not removed from accountability, if you will. So I do say that there is some responsibility and or accountability to be had as it relates to choosing the wrong partner. We definitely have our focuses in the wrong place, and a lot of times we're trying to pick a partner for us and not necessarily trying to figure out what's best for a family and what's best for a child, and ultimately that's the long-term goal in most cases. But understand that, or leave a little room for the fact that you're a man and you know good and well that there are men that tell women what they want to hear to get what they want. In most situations, people in general do this. They tell you what you want to hear because they want to be perceived as a good person. They want to be perceived as an attractive person. They want to be perceived as an easygoing person that can get along with any and everybody. Very few people are completely comfortable with showing their good and bad side and giving a take it or leave it option. So let's be clear. When you're in relationship and you end up with the short end of the stick, yes, there is a component of ignoring red flags and lacking the ability to vet and actually get to know, putting intimacy before actually having the necessary conversations to solidify a relationship. All of those things are a factor. But there's also a factor of this. There are charming individuals in this world that do not show you who they are until they feel like they got you in the fold. And unfortunately, most women have experienced more of the negative side of men than they have the positive side of men. Hence why you get the, oh, he ain't this and he ain't that type discussion, is because your average woman has not seen a good man in her life. Your average woman has not had a good man as a father. Your average woman doesn't know what she's looking for, in the same way that you men don't know who you're looking for when you're looking for yourself and trying to establish your manhood. The same father that was absent to help you develop your manhood is the same father that was absent to demonstrate her what type of man she's looking for. And unfortunately, we have a conversation where we act like absent fathers in the home is an appropriate explanation as to why men aren't showing up in their masculinity the way they need to. But when it comes to talking about women, we act as though that same argument doesn't apply, when in fact it does. In order for a woman to know what type of man she's looking for, she needs something to compare it to. And if she's spent most of her life with the women in her family and or men that were not living up to the ideal representation of what a man is, her perception of what she's looking for and what she's in the world seeking would be jaded, just as well as it would be for a man lacking that representation. Now, following this gentleman right here, he's being clear. And again, I'm not going to shoot down this man and tell you he's a bad person, because at the end of the day, this is the part of life that we refuse to accept. And that is the part of life that says that everyone does not think like you. And regardless of societal norms and the fact that we tell men that this is who you need to be for a woman, there are men that are not buying what you're selling. There are men that do not want to live a traditional lifestyle. They want to live a lifestyle of their own making. So as this gentleman is saying that he would like to have full control over his wife. Now, of course, it's likely stemming from trauma. It's likely stemming from pain. It's likely stemming from a lot of things as to why this is his preference. But that doesn't mean you get to try and change it. That doesn't mean you get to argue with him. That doesn't mean you get to make him a bad person for feeling how he feels. That's how you end up getting involved with a man that you shouldn't be involved with, or involved with a person that you shouldn't be getting involved with, is hearing their truth and trying to convince them that it's not their truth, trying to convince them you are the exception, trying to convince them that their logic is flawed in some way. They are telling you how they see the world and how they choose to operate within that world. Your job is to accept that truth and decide if you want to be a part of this person's life despite how they feel, despite how they act, and despite what they show you. Or are you going to exit stage left and find someone that's more applicable and more compatible with your desires? I can hear everyone in the feed right now going in on this dude, but I am not offended. And I'm not offended because I understand that regardless of the life that I want to see, regardless of the type of men I want to see and how I would like to see them engage in women, that's unrealistic. It's unrealistic to assume that every man has the same wants, needs, and values, and they're looking for women with the same wants, needs, and values. You will always find an exception to the rule, and not everyone feels that way. And understand, too, when you're dealing with the world, even though we know what society likes and what society feels and what's socially acceptable, there are plenty of people that play that role and their desires are completely opposite inside. So what you want is to deal with a person that can openly be honest and describe to you what they want their relationship to look like, and they can be completely forthright and forthcoming and completely transparent to let you know this is what I want to see. In reality, this is the type of man you want to have a conversation with, because at least he's going to tell you, this is what I want. This is how I want my household ran. This is the type of husband I'm going to be. It's better than meeting someone who's charming you, telling you everything you need to hear, telling you he can't wait to marry you, can't wait to have kids with you, and filling your head with a bunch of sweet nothings only for you to get married and have your first child and then find out this is who he is afterwards. I would say we need to be less emotional in this fact and listen to this man and say, you know what? I respect that. I respect the fact that you can say that's what type of relationship you want. But I also would hope you extend me the same courtesy and respect in saying, and honor me when I say I'm not interested. I want someone who wants to participate in a relationship with me. I want someone who's going to be my partner. I'm not looking for someone who wants to run a dictatorship, who wants to be a tyrant, who wants to be controlling. That's not the type of relationship dynamic I'm looking for. And even in that right, and as I just spoke 2 seconds ago to say, I don't want to be part of a dictatorship. I don't want a tyrant as a husband. He doesn't have to be all of those things. That is merely my perception of what that would look like, not necessarily who he is as an individual. But even in that right, I could be 100% wrong. He could be a person who wants complete control over his wife, and she would have the best happy life, and it wouldn't be outrageously controlling as I perceive it to be. That's my projecting onto him and assuming the worst, because I am a free spirit and I can only picture a world where the walls are closing in and you feel like a prisoner. But it doesn't make him a tyrant or a bad man that he says he wants full control over his wife. What control he may want and in what areas may not affect her life at all. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to the woman he chooses. But we still have to get clear on listening to people when they talk, absorbing the truth when it hits you, and then processing it and saying, this is not for me because. We have to say it's not for me because You don't want to project. You don't want to assume that they are this particular person. And again, as I speak for myself, I'm saying this is what I'm imagining would happen if you're with somebody that feels this way. I am not saying this is who this man is. All I know for certain is that this is the type of relationship he wants, and this is the type of husband he wants to be. That doesn't mean he's automatically a bad husband. All it means is he wants to make all the decisions, and he doesn't want his woman thinking that it's on her to do ahead of him. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that if it doesn't transition into any form of abuse or verbal abuse or restrictions of movement and anything like that. He can very well be a full-on awesome husband and still have this perspective. There are a lot of you women who are married to misogynistic men, but you can also say that even though you know he's misogynistic, he's still a good husband. So understand that just because a person views things a certain way, we can't classify them and make them a bad person because we can't see how it would play out because we've never been in such of a scenario. All we can say is, I respect it, and it's not for me. I hope you find what you're looking for. Peace.